If you become president and Donald Trump's trials are still ongoing, would you preemptively pardon him without waiting for a conviction the way that Gerald Ford did for Richard Nixon?
No, I think everything needs to play out. You only want to talk about a pardon after someone has been convicted. So I would assume that we'd let that play out, and I would think he would want that to play out.
If he were convicted, would you then pardon him?
I said I would pardon him with the simple reason of, when you talk about a pardon, someone's already been found guilty. But for me, the last thing we need is an 80-year-old president sitting in jail, because that's just going to further divide our country.
I really need her to stop saying the 80-year-old in jail thing. I don't know why that's supposed to be persuasive. She clearly thinks that it is. I get the idea, you don't want your grandma sitting in prison, right? Well, no, I don't. But to be fair, Mima didn't try to overturn democracy. He's old, sure, that's true. You want that to affect our behavior towards him. How about this? Maybe it could affect his behavior. Maybe when he was 76, he didn't need to send a mob at the Capitol to try to overturn the results of an election. If he did this stuff, and in your hypothetical, a jury has said that he did, if he tried to overturn the results of the election, if he stole the documents, if he committed fraud, if he committed sexual abuse, if the Georgia thing was true and maybe the Arizona thing was true, and dear God, I'm probably forgetting some other ones. If all of that was true and he committed all of these crimes in the last few years, I would say that if a guy in his mid-70s can break the law this much, then he's mature enough to pay the price for it and spend a few years in prison. And then to condescend to us, the idea that if we only let him off the hook one more time, he'll stop splitting up America. He'll stop dividing us and putting us against each other. That is his bread and butter. He will not stop doing that until the day that he dies. And thanks to the cult of personality that has been built up around him, he'll still do that after he dies. He just won't be an active participant in it. Sharon, is there anything to the pardoning thing? Would there be any benefit if she or someone else were to pardon Trump?
No, and it's time for this guy to catch consequences. And you're right. I don't want to hear her talk about 80-year-old people and being in prison. Is she worried about the ones in Mississippi right now who can't even get dental care or their heart medications? Because if she is, that's new for her platform. That would be really new for her. And by the way, in most of those states, they can't vote anyway for her. So no, of course she doesn't care. He's still tanning, okay? He's putting on that orange makeup. He's very active, is what I'm saying. And he's got to be held accountable, because a Donald Trump out of prison is a very dangerous person. A Donald Trump who's not allowed to go back to the bedroom that he used for 4 years when he wasn't at Mar-a-Lago, he's gonna be even more dangerous if he's not locked up. It's time to show America that sometimes guys like him do catch consequences. It can't happen soon enough. And for her to talk about all of this pardoning, it's just ridiculous. This guy, like I said, is still active. He was directing documents to the toilet area in Mar-a-Lago, okay? He was putting them in the toilet closet, or like a goon, a mobster, directing others to commit these crimes. So it won't stop unless he's locked up tight.
Yep. Yeah, you bring up, the people who are currently in prison. Should we let them out? I mean, they're 80. According to you, that
Nobody
means
wants to see that.
There's no harm in letting them go, or is that only for billionaire former presidents? And by the way, then she might be like, well, some of them were violent. He sent a mob at the Capitol. One would argue that that was violent, partially because so many people were injured and multiple people died. Again, it's such nonsense. And look, it's good that Tapper is asking these questions. Tapper occasionally does kind of the right thing. It happens. So I'm going to provide a little bit of feedback there. Look, maybe since when you ask her, will you pardon him? She's gonna say that exact same line, because she says it every single time. Be prepared for that, and then point out that, well, if he's out of prison and just running amok in the country, what do you think? He's gonna be chill for the rest of his life? Like, ask him about that. How about this? You're talking about all these hypotheticals. I mean, who knows what's gonna happen with all these trials? He's already been found civilly liable for sexual abuse and defamation of E. Jean Carroll. Ask her about that. Should female Republican voters be concerned about the fact that he was found guilty of sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll? She is not commenting on that because she's running scared the same way they all are of criticizing him for the things that he's done. And that one is not hypothetical. We're not asking you to get out ahead of yourself. It's done. He's been found guilty. And yet Jake Tapper seems to be walking on eggshells in the same way that she is, and they don't want to talk about it. Final comment before we move on.
The media's been trained too. The media has been trained over a course of what? 4 + 6 years, however many. I'm just kind of like in just this nightmare, like the rest of the country and the world. The media's been trained not to go tough. You know, who am I? I just sat down here and joined the show. Jake has this big time platform over there and producers and everyone in his ear. And that's the best you can do is ask the question, because the truth is, it's not about letting the voters decide. It's about, I don't want to catch too much heat. I don't want to catch hands from the Trumpsters, the Make America Great Again folks. And I think you got to do better. He's not even trying there. He's literally, why are you reading off the card? It's just, why can't we just have a conversation? That's how I know the whole thing is fake, okay? You don't need to read off the card, have a conversation.
Now, will you pardon him? I don't know what that is, but would you do that? Like again, if you're gonna have cards, have follow-ups on the cards. That would be amazing. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.